normal, which the president believed was true.
So it's possible that that happened, that President Trump talked to Michael Cohen.
I don't know if it happened or didn't happen. And it might be attorney-client privileged if it happened, where I can't acknowledge it. But I have no knowledge that he spoke to him.
One of the things he pleaded guilty to, I believe, is lying to Congress about the Trump Tower deal.
But he's pleading guilty to get a reduced sentence, which means he's saying what the prosecutor wants him to say.
But you just acknowledged that President Trump might have talked to him about his testimony.
And so what if he talked to him about it?
Is it not possible that Michael Cohen had that...
Donald Trump's TV attorney, Rudy Giuliani, moving the goalposts yet again, this time on Michael Cohen's testimony to Congress. He's admitting that it's possible Trump spoke to Cohen before his congressional testimony. Back with me, Tara Dowdell, EJ Dion, and Kurt Bardella. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh. Tara, I mean, I'm a lawyer, but I'm pretty sure you can't get a plea deal if you lie and just say whatever the prosecutor wants you to say. Like, that's not how this thing works. Like, he has to have told them everything he knows that is true, right? Am I wrong?
That's usually how it works. But I would say this is so interesting because every week, essentially, Rudy Giuliani gets on TV and confesses another crime. I mean,
right.
I expect but
is he helping Trump?
So I expect in two exactly. I expect him in 2 weeks to say Trump is guilty of everything. I mean,
but it's fine for him to be guilty.
Okay,
there's nothing wrong with it.
Right, exactly.
Okay, all right, EJ, let me play you another Rudy. We can't get enough. Let's play more. Rudy discussing Trump's recollection of the Trump Tower Moscow project. This one's for you, EJ.
The president's recollection of it is that the thing had petered out quite a bit. They sent a letter of intent in. They didn't even know where to send it. They knew so little about it. They finally gotten straightened out, and then they abandoned the project. And that's about as much as he can remember of it because, remember, 2015, 2016.
Right.
He's running against 16 people for president of the United States.
EJ. The allocution, I mean, again, I stipulate I'm not a lawyer, but the allocution that Michael Cohen made said the opposite of what Rudy Giuliani just said. It said that he continued even after Donald Trump was fully running for president to pursue the Trump Tower deal. I don't understand how a lawyer, and Giuliani is both a former prosecutor, gets on TV and says this. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, Joy, I do billion-dollar deals all the time, so some of them just kind of slip my mind, I guess. I'm sorry about that. I mean, this is astounding. First, can we go back to the earlier clip? Rudy Giuliani was a U.S. attorney. He was a prosecutor. Was he telling us there, hey, I took plea deals from people I knew were lying? What was that about? Secondly, if there's ever a trial on all of this, I think a whole day of the trial will just be jurors watching old Rudy Giuliani tapes and clips.
And laughing.
Because the number of times, I mean, he is essentially confirming that Trump lied through his teeth about doing business with Russia in that period. It's just astounding. So it's kind of a shame what's happened to Rudy Giuliani.
It is incredible to think that he was a former U.S. attorney. Incredible. He was a prosecutor. Okay, let's do another one. Let's keep going. Here is our own Chuck Todd trying to pin down Rudy Giuliani, who, again, is Trump's lawyer in theory, on the timeline for the Trump Tower Moscow $300 million project. Take a listen.
It's our understanding that they went on throughout 2016. Weren't a lot of them, but there were conversations. Can't be sure of the exact dates, but the president can remember having conversations with him about it.
Throughout 2016?
The president also remembered. Yeah, probably could be up to as far as October, November. Our answers cover until the election. So anytime during that period, they could have talked about it.
I wonder if he realizes that he just essentially said that Donald Trump could have been talking about building a tower in Moscow right up until Election Day. Kurt.
I don't think he understands anything that he's saying half the time at this point. I mean, it's almost like, does Rudy even talk to Donald Trump at all? I mean, what kind of lawyer is this? Has got to be the worst lawyer in the history of mankind. He should be disbarred for being such a terrible lawyer. Oh my gosh! Every time he goes on television, he contradicts himself. Not what he said a week ago, a month ago. In the same conversation, he'll contradict himself. I mean, it's maddening and insane, but it's also part of what they do, which is throw out so many different things. It's impossible to really focus on any one point, and we all end up going down this path of different tentacles of what's true, what's not true, and the underlying issue, the ones that matter the most, sometimes get lost in the shuffle. And it's a tactic that the right uses a lot, I think, Joy, is they just try to throw at you to distract you from the core truth. And Rudy's that character. He's being sent out there for the sole purpose of just saying anything that comes to his mind in hopes that we won't return to the actual real questions like Chuck was asking during the interview.
Yeah, and I have to come to you on this, Tara, because you have the advantage of actually knowing Donald Trump. Because the more serious thing, the allegation here, is that the obstruction of justice is ongoing, just as the allegation, and that it includes potentially making veiled threats to the family of Michael Cohen, and, you know, ostentatiously going after his father-in-law, that kind of thing, essentially intimidating a witness.
Right.
And so I want to play Rudy Giuliani on CNN earlier today with Jake Tapper talking about that. Take a listen.
So it's okay to go after the father-in-law?
Now, of course it is. If the father-in-law is a criminal and the Southern District of New York, in the plea, wanted him to go to jail and said he's lying, they don't buy the special counsel's approach. We talked about Ukrainians. His father-in-law is a Ukrainian. His father-in-law has millions and millions. Of course it's not. I'm telling you, it comes from the Ukraine. The reason that's important is he may have ties to something called organized crime.
This is stunning to me, Tara, that you have an attorney, a former U.S. attorney, going on television and essentially throwing out allegations, potentially trying to tie Michael Cohen's father to organized crime, and throwing out, well, he's Ukrainian, similar to the way Donald Trump said, well, the judge is Mexican. Is this how Donald Trump operates? Is Giuliani now essentially operating as a mini Donald Trump?
I absolutely think so. I mean, we all know that Donald Trump is a bully. We all know that he uses Twitter to communicate specifically and directly to people. We know that the television is his other means of doing so, and I think that Giuliani is following that very same pattern of behavior. And I think it's scary, it's stunning, it's something else that should be investigated by Congress. I would imagine that investigation is already covering these things, because clearly one of the things we do know is that they are looking at obstruction of justice. We know that, even though there's been very little coming out of the investigation besides all the indictments, of course. We do know that. But I do think, yes, this is absolutely how Trump operates, and Rudy Giuliani has decided that no matter what, he's Team Trump all the way, and he's going to do and behave just the way Trump does, acts and behaves. If he wasn't willing to do it, Trump would not have him around. Yeah,
and you know, EJ, this gets into very serious territory in terms of witness intimidation, et cetera. I mean, Michael Cohen's no stranger to threatening people. He used to do it for Donald Trump. But when we get into a place where a lawyer is on television throwing out veiled threats and the President of the United States is tweeting them out, I mean, we were laughing earlier about Giuliani's sort of silliness and the way he speaks, but have we reached a serious point here where this almost feels like I don't know, what do you think?
Oh, I think this is appalling. I mean, Donald Trump has regularly pursued the following strategy. Don't look at my crimes, look over here at someone else, and then throw out all kinds of charges, whatever you can put your hands on, simply to try to slime somebody else, as you say, intimidate a witness, and get attention over there. That's what he's used Hillary Clinton for throughout from the moment he announced his candidacy for president. And yes, this is not you can't see this in any other way but trying to pressure Cohen, saying, boy, are we going to make your life a mess if you keep doing this. I think it's too late for that now. Cohen has committed himself, but it's just appalling to see him do that.
And lastly, Kurt, we had Chris Wallace this morning on Fox News Press, Vice President Mike Pence, on why they don't just reopen the government. You could do it tomorrow, he said. You could do it tomorrow. Could Donald Trump survive a showdown with Ann Coulter, opening the government without having secured American tax dollars to build a wall?
Clearly he doesn't think so, because if at any point in all of this process, if he thought that was possible, he would have done it by now. But instead, he's allowed himself to be held hostage by the Ann Coulters of the world. And we saw that play out in how he tweeted this morning, and how the tone was so drastically different than what he said 24 hours ago. So there's no question he doesn't feel like he can lose that base of support, because I think he knows that if he loses the Ann Coulters and the Rush Limbaughs and the Sean Hannitys, that's the only thing that stands in the way between him and actual impeachment. And I'll also say on that last clip, I just got to say this. I'm married to someone someone who's from Ukraine, she's Ukrainian. The idea that the president's lawyer would go on national television and say that being from Ukraine makes you possible complicit in organized crime is one of the most ridiculous things I have ever heard.
Yeah, especially since Donald Trump hired a man named Paul Manafort.
Right.
Who part of his, lucrative